Alrighty, so one thing I like to do is actually start rolling up the weeks as they passed. So week 1, week 2, right? And we're into week 3. And actually, the time I'm recording this video, you actually have the work. You finished this work last night and I graded it, and it seems like most of you got it. A couple of you didn't give me the correct link. And what I wanted was a link to the actual rendered website and not to GitHub repos, but you can check that out. And I know this one was long, but it does have some great information in it. So now into week 3. So we're making a big transition in week 3. One thing we're going to do is, instead of taking notes for the lecture this week, you're going to code along. And I'm going to have you, so the reason I'm kind of prefacing it this way, and I actually do say this in the videos for each of the items, but just to give you another FYI, because we also transition to cloning our repos. So like right now, you're all working out on GitHub, right? So you're making your changes, you're doing all this work here. Well, this week we transition to where your repos will be local. And I think if you wanted to, I might suggest, and I don't really see how I could reorder it, but you could, is actually to go ahead, get your editor, install Git, shouldn't be that big a deal, and then clone. Kind of jump ahead to Thursday if you want to. And what the reason why is that you can do this lecture on the editor, and it might just be easier. But my main point about this is that once we move from working out on GitHub to working locally, and you've heard me say this and you're going to hear it again, just try never to change it out on GitHub once you clone. And it just creates what we call conflicts, because you're doing version control, it's tracking all these changes. Then you're going to do something called the workflow, and the workflow you're going to get into first of next week. But I preview it here. So maybe, I was sitting here thinking about it, because you could clone it, but you'd actually have to do the workflow to get it out on to GitHub so that you could turn it in. So maybe you don't want to. It's really up to you what you want to do. Many of you, I'm guessing, will choose VS Code. It's what I use. It's what I show. Many of you are taking 93. So that makes sense. So for those of you in my 93, this should be a relatively straightforward week for you, because we've already done all this work in week 1. Okay. And then one thing is, you're going to coda along with one video that's an hour long, but I break it into half-hour sections because it's just good to have that experience spread over that time. And then know that if you're taking CIT85 with Todd, which is the next logical class after 82, you're going to get a deeper dive into HTML and CSS. Okay? All right, so that's the work for this week. There's a couple things I wanted to say. One, just to let you know, because I've had a couple of people ask me, I don't work for Google. I volunteer to build tech communities. So GDG is Google Developer Groups, and we have a chapter here in Fresno, and I help organize that. We have a WTM, which, by the way, these are both Google programs. The WTM is a Women Tech Maker. I'm an ambassador for them, again, for the local chapter. But I also do work in the national level. So I mentor for all the North America Women Tech Maker ambassadors. So it's fun what I get to do. I get to build local technology communities with GDG and WTM and Bitwise and other organizations. And I get to work nationally to do some mentoring for that. Women who are in the ambassador program. And actually, I'll be heading out to an event the last day of this class, which is why the schedule is set the way it is. Okay. I'm actually heading to Austin for a summit that we help run down there. So anyway, just if you want to know anything else about that. And I did talk about DevFest, which is part of our local GDG and WTM chapters. I will have student codes for that. probably next week. I'd hope to have them by today, but it just didn't work out. And this is from last time. But I'm hoping to have those codes this time. And I know a couple of you are interested in doing that. So I do have 4 free tickets for folks that are underrepresented group. So if you feel like you would qualify in that area, email me in Canvas and let me know and kind of state your case about why that is. And I'd love to give those tickets away. I'm going to be offering this up to the 93 class and to the 82 class. So I've already talked about this, right? So we're moving from GitHub out on the web to Git. Don't modify GitHub once you've cloned. And then one thing I want to be clear about is if you submit something and then let's say, and many of you are doing this, you're submitting late or work either right at the due date or right before. And if you submit it before, then I'm going to grade it. And if you wanted to get those points that you missed right back, you would need to do it before the due date. Because I do accept late work. It's discounted 25%. And what this means is if you submit something, let's just say at the due date, and it was worth 100 points, right? And let's say you actually got 90 points, got some few points off for something that didn't happen. And so I took that, right? That was your grade. But if you correct that and expect to get those 10 points back after the due date, then that's not the way late work works. Because late work, if you're submitting work after the due date, it's discounted 25%. So that 90, let's say you got, that you're like, I'm going to get the 10 points back, but you submitted the change after the due date, the max points you could get would be 75. Right? I know, right? So it's because it's 100 points minus points possible minus 25 is what you can get if you submit late work, right? So assuming you get 100%. So it doesn't make sense, even though I like that you want to fix it. But if you're in that situation, that's why I'm actually doing it this way, is to encourage you to submit 24 hours before the due date so that I have a chance to actually grade that and you have a chance to fix it before the late grade and what I mean by that is before the due date. Okay. So if you have any questions, that could be one of the replies that you do as a post in this post, right? So the other thing is, this is a good discussion about Python, and I am going to be teaching Python this time next year. And it was a really good question because the student was looking at the surveys and noticing how popular Python is. And Python has become very popular because it's a great beginner language and it's very powerful. It's not as if just because it's good for beginners, it's not good for production level stuff. It is good all the way around. I'm going to be teaching it this time next year because I'm teaching in the data science program, which is part of the machine learning. And machine learning course that's going to right now be run for us the second 9 weeks down at the Hive. If you're interested in that class, it does require you to have some programming. But if you feel like, you have enough to where you'd feel comfortable, you're welcome to reach out to me. It is going to be Tuesday, Thursdays, and it's 4-unit class in 9 weeks. So it does have quite an hour per week requirement just for class time, not even counting what you need to do. So I'm not trying to scare you, just trying to give you here's the reality, right? So if you want to know, if you have any other specific questions, what are we going to learn? You're going to learn how to do machine learning. And you're wondering what that is we're moving from writing code to create algorithms to where we create models based on the huge amount of data sets. And so we're using those models and the statistical methods in order to make predictions based on the model that's been created. So oftentimes we can use models and data with machine learning that we couldn't necessarily effectively code in some programming language. So there's a lot more to learn. Matter of fact, I think I have towards the end a video for you to go over about machine learning, right? Because I think it's good for everybody in this industry to get introduced to it. The last thing I'm going to say, and maybe this is the one that you will ask questions about. I noticed that many of you, when asked about when you were doing the GitHub pages, I was asking you about what kind of website you'd want. That you had a lot of great ideas and a lot of, good positive thinking about this. And so the thing I typically do, and I'm open to changing this, is that I either give students one of two options when it comes to their project, their biggest project at the end of this class, project 0, is I either let them do what's called a vanity site, vanity meaning about you, or I let them organize the course content into a website. And I have more detail that I'll be talking about probably next week about the Project 0. But if you're really passionate about creating a website, I'm open to doing that. The thing you'd have to know is just the way I need it organized as far as its menu and the number of pages. So keep that in mind as we move forward and talk more about what that Project 0 looks like. So if you want to ask me about any of this, right, in your reply, that's cool. So a couple of you have asked questions out on chat, so chat's still available. Please, that's a great place to ask questions, because then if you ask and if I can answer, other people will see that answer as well. Okay, I think that's it for this week. Again, you're probably going to get a little of this in these 2 videos. Know that where we're moving is once you clone this here, right? So depending on the sequence you use, right? So we're moving in these 2 weeks from working out on GitHub to local Git, and it's really a great experience to know how to do this kind of work. It's a fundamental skill, and I think he mentioned that when we were going over, I'm pretty sure in this week, the lecture that you guys had. All right, have a good one, and I will talk to you soon.